Have you ever wondered how emails travel from one side of the world to another in a matter of seconds? It's all thanks to SMTP and networking. Standing for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, SMTP is the backbone of all email communication. It's like the postal service of the internet, handling the sending of emails from one server to another. This incredible technology is at work every time you hit that send button, ensuring your email finds its way to the right inbox, even if it's thousands of miles away. Whether it's a personal message to a friend, a business correspondence, or even an online purchase receipt, SMTP makes it all possible. Despite its widespread use, many of us aren't aware of the intricate process that goes on behind the scenes every time we send an email. So, let's lift the curtain on this fascinating technology. Stay tuned as we delve into the intriguing world of SMTP and unravel its workings step by step. SMTP, or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, is the backbone of email communication. This statement captures the essence of our topic today. So, what exactly is SMTP? In the simplest terms, it's a set of rules that governs the delivery of emails across the internet. It's like a mail carrier, but instead of delivering physical letters, it transports your digital messages from one place to another. Now let's dive a little deeper. As a protocol, SMTP defines a set of instructions for communication between servers. It's a language that servers use to talk to each other. And in this conversation, the servers are discussing the best way to deliver your email. So, how do SMTP and your email client interact? Well, when you hit send on an email, your client hands it over to the SMTP server. It's kind of like dropping a letter into a mailbox. Once the email is in the SMTP server's hands, it's responsible for getting that email to the recipient's server. But it's not always a straight path. Sometimes the SMTP server has to pass the email along to another SMTP server, like a relay race. This happens when the email is being sent to a different domain. In these cases, the SMTP server of your email provider will pass the email to the SMTP server of the recipient's email provider. And what if something goes wrong? Well, SMTP is pretty smart. If it encounters an issue, like the recipient's email address doesn't exist, it will send a failure message back to you. It's like getting a returned letter in the mail. SMTP is an essential part of how we communicate online. It's the unsung hero that works behind the scenes, ensuring that our emails get where they need to go. Now that we know the basics, it's time to explore the step-by-step process of how SMTP works. So, stick around as we delve deeper into the intricacies of this fascinating protocol in the next scenes. So, how does SMTP work? It all starts when you hit the send button on your email. This action initiates a dialogue between your email client and the SMTP server. The email client, which could be anything from your Gmail or Yahoo Mail, tries to establish a connection with the server. The SMTP server, acting like a vigilant gatekeeper, has the job of deciding whether to accept or reject this connection. It's like a bouncer at a nightclub, checking IDs and making sure only the right kind of traffic gets through. If the server is satisfied with the credentials presented by the email client, it gives a green light, accepting the connection. Now this is just the first step, the opening gambit in this intricate dance of digital communication. Having won over the bouncer, the server, and secured a connection, the email client is ready to move forward. Once the connection is accepted, we move to the next step in the SMTP process. Our email has connected to the server. What happens next? Once your email client establishes a connection, it's time for the second step in the SMTP process. Here, the email client sends over the sender and recipient's email addresses to the SMTP server. This is a crucial step as it ensures that the email is going to land in the correct inbox. The SMTP server, like a diligent postmaster, takes on the responsibility of verifying these addresses. It doesn't just blindly accept what it's given. Instead, it goes through an authentication process to verify the legitimacy and existence of these email addresses. This process is a bit like checking a guest list at a fancy party. The SMTP server checks whether the sender's email address is authorized to send emails. If the address checks out, the SMTP server then moves on to the recipient's email address. Similar to the sender's address, the SMTP server checks if the recipient's email address exists. If it does, the server acknowledges the email client's request, signaling that it's ready to receive the message. If it doesn't, the server sends an error message back to the email client, preventing the email from being sent to a non-existent address. This verification process is essential in maintaining the integrity of our inboxes and ensuring that the emails we send and receive are from legitimate sources. With the email addresses verified, we're ready to move to the next step. Our email addresses have been verified, but how does the email content get transferred? Now that we have the green light for our email addresses, it's time to tackle the third step in the SMTP process, transferring the actual content of the email. This is where the meat of our communication comes into play, the body of the email and any attachments we may want to include. Our email client, whether it's an application on our computer or a web-based service, packages up our message and its attachments, if any, and sends them over to the SMTP server. It's like handing over a sealed envelope to the post office ready for delivery. Once the SMTP server receives this data, it has a crucial task: preparing the content for transmission. It's not as simple as just sending it out as is. The server has to encode the data into a format that can be transmitted efficiently over the internet. This process is similar to packing a suitcase for a trip. You can't just throw everything in. You have to fold clothes, organize toiletries, and make sure everything fits in neatly. The SMTP server does a similar job with our email content. It transforms the data into a compact, efficient format that can be sent over the internet without losing any information. It's like a digital packing expert, ensuring that our email content is ready to be sent out into the world. With the email content ready, it's time for the SMTP server to do its main job. We're now at the final step of the SMTP process where our email finally gets sent. Let's dive in. At this point, our email has been composed, addressed, and prepared for transmission by the SMTP server. Now it's time for the actual sending to occur. This is where our SMTP server really gets to work. The SMTP server's first task is to locate the recipient's server. To do this, it relies on the Domain Name System, or DNS. The DNS acts like a phone book for the internet, translating domain names into IP addresses. So, when our SMTP server needs to find the recipient's server, it consults the DNS. Once the SMTP server has the IP address of the recipient's server, it initiates a conversation. It's a bit like knocking on the door and waiting for a response. When the recipient's server answers, our SMTP server announces that it has an email to deliver. Now here's where things can get a little tricky. The recipient's server can either accept or reject the email. If it accepts the email, great. Our SMTP server sends the email, and the recipient's server confirms receipt. But if the recipient's server rejects the email, our SMTP server has to deal with the rejection. It might try to resend the email later, or it might return the email to the sender with an error message. So the SMTP server does more than just send emails. It also navigates the complexities of the internet, consults the DNS, communicates with other servers, and handles potential problems. It's a critical part of the email process, ensuring that our messages get where they need to go. And that's it. Our email has been successfully sent using SMTP. So the next time you hit send on an email, spare a thought for the hardworking SMTP server that makes it all possible. So, we've taken a journey through the SMTP process from sending to receiving an email. We've dived into the basics, understanding that Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, or SMTP, is the backbone of email communication. It's the postman of the digital world, ensuring our messages get to where they need to go. We've followed SMTP's footsteps, detailing how it initiates a conversation with the receiving server, verifies the receiver, and transfers the message. We've seen how it works tirelessly, hopping from one server to another just to deliver our letters. Through this journey, we've learned about its crucial role in networking. It's not just about sending and receiving emails. It's about ensuring effective, efficient, and secure communication. It's about bridging gaps and connecting people no matter where they are in the world. SMTP may seem complex, but it's this intricacy that allows us to send emails across the globe in an instant. Fascinating, isn't it?